The latest scandal with the Tories involves money. Shocking, I know.
And this was from your Instagram. I think the thing you posted with this was Ladies' Night. There you are, next to Theresa May. On the other side of Theresa May is Lyubov Janurkin, who's the wife of a former Russian minister who's given the Conservative Party more than £1.8 million. That makes her the biggest female donor in recent British political history. Her wealth comes from her husband, Vladimir, who has strong links to the Kremlin. Now, in that picture, at the time, there were 6 female cabinet members. Liz Truss, that shows us, doesn't it, that the closeness of the British government to Russian money.
What I can say to you today is that we will target anybody who we believe has links to the Putin regime, who is helping support and prop up the Putin government, and nothing is off the table in terms of who we target.
Are you embarrassed by seeing photographs like that?
No, I'm not. I attended the dinner at the time. I make my decisions as Foreign Secretary on the basis of what is right. And as I've said, without prejudice, we will target anybody who is of interest in terms of the Russian regime, who is helping prop up Vladimir Putin's appalling regime. And
Rome was the largest and the most beautiful city of the ancient world. The magnificent facade of the empire, however, could not conceal the seeds of decay. The unhealthy dependence of the economy on slaves, the disparity between rich and poor. Behind the splendor of the Forum were vast areas of crowded slums. Escape from the slums was difficult, for there were few jobs available and practically none for the unskilled. To keep idle citizens entertained and out of mischief, frequent games and spectacles were held at public expense. At first, only chariot races were sponsored, but by the reign of Trajan, brutal combat to the death had become popular. Earlier in Rome's history, elected representatives exercised the power, but by now every function of government had been absorbed by the emperor, who was above the law and ruled by decree. That a people as civilized as the Romans, with the most humane system of law ever devised, could tolerate the violation of human beings is astonishing. This imbalance and the irresponsible behavior of public officials would become major reasons for Rome's eventual decline.
A lot of questionable money is going into London and the Tory party. A lot from Russian donors with strong links to the Putin regime, and very little to the public.
We shouldn't be waiting for Russia to attack others to clean up the corruption and Russian money which has been fueling in the UK. Under the Tories, a sewer of dirty Russian money has been allowed to run through London for years. I went to the Prime Minister, the then Foreign Secretary, in 2017, and I raised the issue of limited partnerships, 113 of which have been used to move $20.8 billion out of Russian banks. Corruption on an industrial scale. Why did the Prime Minister do nothing back then? And why is he still doing nothing now?
I'm grateful to him. I think that he was right to come to me then, and I've always enjoyed talking to him, as I've told him many times. I think he's right on the issue. We do need to stop corrupt Russian money in London and every other financial capital. That's why we've already taken the steps that we have taken, but we are going much further to uncloak the true owners of Russian companies and Russian properties in this country, and high time, Mr. Speaker. No country is doing more than the UK to tackle this issue.
That meeting was 5 years ago, and I offered to work with the Prime Minister 5 years ago, and nothing has happened. The truth is that Russian oligarchs who give the right people in power a golden handshake have been welcomed into London for years. Their activities weren't stopped, they were encouraged. And plenty of these golden handshakes just so happened to find their way into the coffers of the Conservative Party. Mr. Speaker, £2.3 million in fact, since the Prime Minister took office. A leading American think tank has publicly raised concerns, and I quote, about the close ties between Russian money and the United Kingdom's ruling Conservative Party are a block to stronger sanctions. Yep. How can our allies trust this Prime Minister to clean up dirty Russian money in the UK when he won't even clean up his own political party? Will he finally commit to giving up the 2.3 million his party has raised in from Russian oligarchs?
I just think it's very important for the House to understand we do not raise money from Russian oligarchs. People who give money to this, we raise money from people who are registered to vote on the UK Register of Interest, and that is how we do it, Mr. Speaker.
We could go back to 2018 and have a listen to Corbyn versus May.
We're all familiar with the way huge fortunes, often acquired in the most dubious circumstances in Russia, sometimes connected with criminal elements, have ended up sheltering in London and trying to buy political influence in British party politics. Meddling in elections, as the Prime Minister put it, there has been over £800,000 worth of donations to the Conservative Party from Russian oligarchs and their associates.
And let's get back to 2022.
As we're talking about funds, it was revealed that the Conservative Party has received almost £2 million in donations from Russia, what are called Russian-linked figures. What sort of smell does that have to you?
Well, those donations are completely legitimate. They are from British nationals of Russian birth, and we have donations from people born outside the UK to all political parties in the UK. That is not in itself. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean,
why would an oligarch give a lot of money to the Conservative Party, do you imagine, Minister? Why might he or she do that?
Well, I imagine some of the people who have fled the oppressive regime of Vladimir Putin wanted to support a political party that at the time was trying to prevent Jeremy Corbyn
Would you give the money back?
Holding Putin to account. What? There's no reason to. The money was completely legitimate. And if you're suggesting...
Do you enjoy benefiting from Russian money? Does the party enjoy benefit? Not you personally. Does the Conservative Party enjoy benefiting?
Nick, if you're making a specific accusation, make the specific accusation, because otherwise the implication is that somehow there's an illegitimacy to all Russians.
I just wonder how it smells.
We wouldn't. No, Nick. Let me finish. No, let me finish.
Presumably, some of Putin's buddies fund the Conservative Party, Mr.
We wouldn't accept that. We wouldn't accept that if you're making that kind of blanket accusation about any other.
I'm not making an accusation, Mr. Clover. I'm just pointing out the facts.
Well, if you're not making an accusation, what are we talking about then?
I'm pointing out the facts that I presume some of Putin's buddies have sent cheques or delivered funds to the Conservative Party that you and your colleagues have chosen not to refund, and I just think that smells a bit iffy, but you don't.
The two defences have generally been, one, you're smearing all Russians, which clearly isn't the case. They're smearing ones linked to Vladimir Putin. But the other thing is, all money's transparent and the money's come from nationals. And this is going to become very interesting a little bit later when we discuss what's happened with Liz Truss, Fulbrook, the Venezuelan banker, and the governor of Puerto Rico. Just listen to this point on transparency, which you can't get from Companies House.
In Companies House, you don't have any concerns, because your security minister said something completely different today in the Commons, where he said, actually, you're right, Companies House allows for companies to hold money and for it not to be clear where it's come from. So you can say with absolute certainty that no money ever linked to anything to do with Putin and the Russian state has ever come to the Conservative Party. You may very well be able to in a few years' time when we see this legislation come to reality, but you cannot say that now, and the British public deserve it.
So let's look at this latest scandal, which involves Liz Truss, the Prime Minister, her chief advisor and campaign manager Fulbrook, a bank, a political lobby, the governor of Puerto Rico, and a rich Venezuelan who owns the bank. So let's start at the beginning. Valentini runs a bank called Bank Credito, which is based in Puerto Rico. The US territory started investigating his banks. Valentini then offered a sizable donation to the governor of Puerto Rico, which he accepted, but it was given on the condition that Puerto Rico stopped the investigation into Valentini's bank, Bank Credito. So, how does this involve Truss and Fulbrook? Valentini paid the money to the governor through a British political company called CT Group, and Fulbrook worked as a chief global projects officer, Fulbrook is now being questioned by the FBI. How does this link to Truss? Fulbrook worked as Truss' campaign manager for a recent election to become PM, and is currently Liz Truss's chief of staff. A spokesperson for Fulbrook said that he's committed to and complies with all laws and regulations in any jurisdiction in which he works, and is confident that he has done so in this matter. But it gets better, as Valentini has been donating to the Tory party. Once again, a dodgy person offering dodgy money to the Tories. But another fact that seems to have escaped a lot of the media attention: Valentin does not own a British passport, which would mean that the donations to the Tory party are illegal. And that's interesting because I've just shown you a load of clips about Russian interference and Russian donations over to the Tory party, and one of their core defences has been that the money has been given by people that have a British passport. And of course, this has now failed. In recent years, Ferrara Valentini donated more than £500,000 to the Tories via Britannia Financial, his London-based financial services group. Currently, this group has not been accused of any wrongdoing. Seems to be nothing new here with the Tory party, and what I often get asked is, what should we be doing about it? My simple suggestion to all of you is, write to your MP, maybe even consider reporting it to the police. This is quite a serious problem that's taking place within the Tory party. Donations are coming in from dodgy locations. Thank you for listening, and thank you to all my Patreon and YouTube supporters who keep this channel growing and going.